Behind the Hooks. With Manny DeGrandis. And Daniel Panetta.
What is up? Oh, I can't even fake energy right now.
That was horrendous.
I give you a C.
I thought you were testing a mic.
Like it's okay. So we're filming this on Tuesday, and it's just like it feels like just
It's the weather.
Abomination of a week.
Sorry.
But
We do have a special guest. If you're watching and just like, who the fuck is that? If you watched our last 1.0,
don't do it.
you saw him here twice. Well, not here.
No, but there.
On the show. There. Here.
And I don't remember a thing.
Sorry about that.
We needed to do this. We needed redemption because Leo was very kind enough to. By the way, Leo Gray is here.
Yay!
We needed redemption because Leo was kind enough to bring in some Jaeger and teach us how to drink it properly.
I'm a horrible teacher.
And Manny, if you watch, maybe I'll put a clip up of what Manny did. He drank straight from the bottle, straight from the Jaeger bottle, like he was like some 1864 medicine trolley guy, just swigging away. Like,
but he hasn't had COVID, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Those Germans know what to put in that thing, right?
Exactly.
He's immune to all.
I'm stronger.
if we had any Germans watch that episode, they're like, no, nine. Leo, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me,
and
guys.
not protesting.
Yeah.
Come back. This was
I'm happy
awesome.
to be here.
Were you the one who unliked? the one dislike on YouTube.
We had a dislike on YouTube. I didn't monitor the last show, so I have no idea what got a dislike.
I like everything.
I figured it was
Positive vibes only, folks.
Aww.
So what's been going on this past year? How did your Rent-A-Stage.ca get through COVID?
Well, I'm assuming you kind of went through the half season like most gigging people went, but you started a little earlier than most.
Yeah, there was restrictions eased for a bit, and the second restrictions eased, it was like a lot of the clients we work with were like, now, like,
right,
we got to do something, right? And government-wise, the government's been holding on to all this festival money for the last 2 years and still pumping it out to many promoters who do any festivals in the GTA or in all of Ontario. And we're like, because we were all held to the same rules, it was like, okay, well, you can go now. Let's put up a stage and let's have a show. Even if it's putting big circles in the parking lot and you stand in your circle and you stand in your circle and music's happening. So we were lucky enough to have some shows starting, I think, July. We were doing from July on. And it was sort of like that. It was a lot of drive-in concepts, which are weird when, like...
I never got to do one of those.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't play one.
You didn't play one either? What was that like?
The weirdest one was when I did a drive-in show where there was no front-of-house PA.
Sorry?
Huh?
Yeah, so it was all radio transmission to the cars.
Like a drive-in.
Like a
So
drive-in.
if you're driving like a Tercel, 92 Tercel.
They're not musicians going to this show.
No. So for the people who don't understand, it's like the band's playing on stage. There's no speakers in front of the stage. There's just a radio transmitter transmitting to your car.
And your shitty speakers.
And whatever shitty speakers you have in your car, that's what the band will sound like. So I actually hired a sound guy to sit in his truck, mix the bands while I did monitors and dealt with the bands on stage. And he would sit in his truck and mix for his truck and hope that everyone else's car sounded as good as what was happening in this truck.
That's
That's a good move.
insane.
Very, very
So,
strange.
okay, so you had stage monitors for the band to hear
Stage
themselves.
monitors, yeah.
So like the
band was
basic
live.
setup, the
So they
basic
felt
setup,
comfortable.
just no mains.
The only thing I had was subs, so
Okay.
that you could still feel kind of like a from a
Yeah.
kick
That's
and whatever.
smart. That's smart.
Because that doesn't like not everyone has a decent sub system in their car.
No.
Right.
Right.
Most people don't
Most
have a
people
decent
don't, right?
system.
And depending on what year your vehicle is, like like.
Well, if
vehicles-
you grew up where we grew up, you probably do.
that's true.
Or if you buy your car used from
Damn
where we grew
wops.
up.
Anyways. But
What
yeah.
else do you listen to Stevie B? How else do you listen to Stevie
You
B?
can't. It's just not right if you don't do it that way.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a weird show, and we got a noise complaint. That was the funniest part. Was that some lady complained to the township that she could hear the show, and all she could hear was the monitors hitting the back of my stage and pushing out. And we
pushing
were a
out.
solid. I want to say we were a solid kilometer from the nearest house. Wow. So I mean, I push monitors hard for ours, but come on,
That's
we're
those are hefty
talking-
monitors, dude.
That was just monitors, and we got a noise complaint. We took it as a badge of honor that
Yeah.
that was a thing, but
Check.
But that was weird. And then yeah,
Why did you do it that way? What was
because
the
of
reasoning?
COVID bylaw. Yeah, what the idea was because of the COVID rules, we had to keep people in their cars. And the only way to
okay.
keep people in their cars was
Cars
to
is
not
yeah,
have
okay.
a front of house PA.
Fair enough.
So if you can't hear the band properly, you have to sit in the car to hear the band properly.
Yeah, it's like leading with
strange.
the carrot. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
the best way you're gonna hear this is
Because
in your
all
own
those
vehicle.
other ones, everybody got out of the car. And
Every
cracked
so
a
like when I
beer.
did Beaches Jazz this past July, proper PA, drive-in concept, everyone got out of their cars. Everyone was mingling,
Summer.
even though they're not supposed to. Like we knew that was going to happen. There's no way you can take the human element out of it and say, okay, please people don't commingle with other people.
Right.
It's going to happen, right? So
I don't know. So I'm we're getting booked now for next
Cool.
summer,
Awesome.
right? And do you think that people are going to be trigger shy going to shows like this, or are they going to be like balls to the wall like they tried to be back in last July?
yeah, it's going to be balls to the wall. I think everyone is tired, right?
Yeah.
Take the vaccinated, unvaccinated thing out the window. People are just tired,
Yeah.
and they just want to move on with their lives, right or wrong. I'm not going to get into that debate.
Oh yeah, we fight very hard not to like
not to
like
discuss
not to
that.
tether that, you know what I mean? Treading on what, but at the same time, like fuck it, it's our show. Like we could talk about whatever we want.
I have my own personal views. My thing is, I want everyone to be safe. I want everyone to be happy. But music inherently brings people together, right? So when you're going to see a show, it's impossible to dance to it and not have camaraderie with the person next to you, right? Who's enjoying it as well.
Totally.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a balls to the wall thing. But even in Toronto alone, like the vaccination numbers are very high compared to other cities, towns, whatever countries.
Just compared to the States alone.
Yeah, right. Like we're doing well, so chances are we're going to be balls to the wall come next season.
Yeah.
The winter will probably still be hard. There's still going to be whatever there's going to be, but as the summer progresses, it's going to be a lot better than what we dealt with this year.
Yeah.
As a business, it was hard, but not as hard as 2020 was, which was nothing. Right? Like you are shut down. You cannot do anything. Which
2020 felt like it lasted a decade.
for sure.
And look, everybody, it felt like that for everybody. But in the music world, I remember like when we were still doing this show and at the old place, and I just remember like every time we would talk about what was going on in the current thing and not talking about like our past experiences and stuff like that, you listen back and you can hear the level of anger in all of our voices. Just the level of anger, because there's still a lot of stones that are left unturned in terms of the representation that we have as musicians here in Canada. Basically, in a roundabout way, and I'm sorry, children, plug your ears. We got fucked.
Yeah.
Like we got screwed over really, really bad. It just goes to show where the government's priorities lie in terms of the arts in Canada, and that kind of shed a lot of light. I have a lot of friends here in Canada that are looking at time to emigrate. Time to get out of here because they were doing fine with gigs and stuff like that, but after that it was like, wow, okay, so I pay every year to be part of this union. I'm part of a bunch of songwriter grant forms and this and that and the other thing, and it's just like, What for? Why am I paying all this money, right? We literally figured it out for ourselves, right? And there was that stretch of time, like the summer where you did that mini tour for MS.
Which was last year, yeah.
That was last year, and that was it's like, oh shit, man! Like you took the initiative. It's like you're doing it safely, great turnouts, great viewership,
Sure,
great time. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah, hot as shit.
Hot. Stupid.
What a
day.
day. What a
So hot that day.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely was.
I had 2 cables melt. You ever had
Yeah.
cables melt?
That would have been the day. It was
It
hot.
was hot. For sure it was.
But it was great. I honestly, it was the highlight. It went by way too fast, and yeah, like that's what I remember. And as we keep going further and further away, it's almost like this fog. I don't know if you guys like, because I try to keep details of that whole experience just at the back.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now you know what it could be.
Yeah, that's like
How
the bottom
bad
of the
it could
barrel.
be.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Never let it get there again.
Yep.
Because
It's not up to us.
I don't know about you. You guys probably didn't have this issue, but before COVID, I was so choosy about the gigs I did. When I went out to, watch my friends play, which complete dick move, and like I take full responsibility of that. Then when it went to nothing, I made a vow where it's like, unless you're booked at the exact same time on the exact same day, or the money is abysmal and like not worth it, you're not saying no.
Wait, the money's abysmal?
What's a biz? Music business?
You don't make tens upon tens of dollars?
Tens and tens of dollars.
Sweet.
But like, yeah, like the option to say no literally went to none. And yeah, sure, the burnouts are real and stuff like that, and it does get pretty hectic. But I haven't been this happy in a long ass time.
Good for you, man.
Just
That's great.
doing gigs, right?
Playing.
So
People.
yeah, just
Watching other friends.
like Manny and I played. What was it, last Friday?
Yeah.
It was packed.
Good. That's awesome.
Packed.
lots
Standing
of fun.
room only. People dancing. It's just like, but like responsibly. Only vaccinated people were allowed inside. They check it at the door.
As it should be.
And like kudos to Old Village Treehouse for
Doing the right thing.
doing the right thing,
Sure.
being responsible, and at the same time, you like literally like no time had passed.
That's
and
good.
hit the ground running, right? Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, I think it was a party.
It was
Other
totally
than
a party.
You get checked on the way in, then it was like, whatever. Right? And yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Let's just
It was nuts.
We could have nights like that,
Oh, that'd be
and it's safe.
fantastic.
And it's a blast.
I think all of our next shows, like all of our shows coming up, are literally going to be like that because it's just people have been laying in wait.
Yeah.
It's
and
cool to see the young
gonna be-
kids.
it's going to be a gong show. And next summer is going to be more of that plus because good weather outside, everyone
Yeah.
gets, tugs on the old heartstrings, right?
Totally, man.
For sure.
That's awesome. Well, going back to Rent a Stage, for those of you, sorry, we probably have new people listening now or no people listening now, but Rent a Stage, please explain.
Is what it is.
Please,
Which is
Best
amazing.
name ever.
it is.
What
it
shall
really
we
is.
call it?
Rent stages.
But it's not just the stage. Like
It's not
it is a
anymore, yeah.
package.
Supposed to be.
It's a
when we
full
started,
package.
it was literally we had a stage and
Right.
we rented
that stage.
So
So please tell the beautiful
rent that
people.
stage was taken.
Rent that stage. Rent this stage.
so Rent a Stage, we deal with festivals primarily, and we have big outdoor stages that we rent out to promoters, towns, cities who are putting on events. We kind of specialize in the smaller events, so food truck festivals, rib fests, that type of thing. But anything and everything. We've done weddings. We've done all kinds of weird, wonderful things. So yeah, it started as just the stage, and then we were like, oh, we can do PA for that stage, right? And we can also do lights for that stage. And we can do backline, which is all the instrumentation and like drums and amps. We can do everything for that festival.
Yeah.
Required power, the whole 9 yards. So it quickly evolved. It wasn't something we sought out to do, but it was like, oh, there was a need for that, so let's just fill that need. And
So you're saying instead of just going there, drop off the stage and picking it up on Sunday night,
Yep.
why don't I just stay and run the PA?
Run the PA, yeah, exactly. So I mean, there are other companies that just do production, which they would, and we still deal with that. They rent stages from us, and we drop off the stage, we set it up, and they do the sound and all the fun stuff. And we come back on Sunday and we pick it up, right?
Well,
And
really, that was the only way for the longest time,
yeah.
because there were unions for
Yes.
a lot of people, right? You had the sound union, you had the people who do the stage setup,
Sure.
grippers and everything like that, who like were completely separate thing, and it's
Yep.
like literally like you had to hire them individually.
Sure.
So, because I remember playing on a couple of those types of stages where the sound guy was from a completely different company, the stage was from a completely different company.
Yep.
You know, everybody was just a separate thing. So, where did the idea come from to be able? Obviously, there was a need. Were you getting questions from the promoters and the people putting on the festivals? It's like, hey, do you guys do this as well? Is that where the idea started sparking?
Initially was that, yeah. It was like, oh, you know, weirdly enough, it started with like, I'd kind of hire my own bands to play these festivals.
Damn right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'd be like they're renting a stage and they'd be like, oh, well, do you know any sound companies? Yeah, we have that gear. Right. And so I was now double, triple, quadruple dipping because I'd provide the stage, set up the sound and lights and backline, and then I would play my own stage while doing sound for my own bands.
Yeah, you're an animal.
Right,
Though.
so
You're just a different breed.
Right,
dude.
so it started kind of jokingly like that. Yeah, and I'd walk away with my $5 bill, and I'd be very happy. But that's sort of how it started. Then it was like, okay, well, you know, I'll do these. You know, we got into some bigger festivals and whatnot, and we have a nice range of clients that range from bigger stuff to smaller stuff. But that's where we specialize. You know, and we're happy with that. You know, we're constantly expanding, which is great.
Yeah.
And even through COVID, we have expanded.
Well, that's the thing I was super
tricky.
proud of you about. Like through COVID, you found a way, even if it was at the tail end towards the lockdown. That's why I was saying, like, you were one of the early ones to start getting back into gear and taking the opportunity to still bring music to people in that format and manage to do it successfully.
Yeah,
You know,
it was
because
tricky.
there's a lot where it was not.
We saw a lot of bad things happen in the last year. Like a lot of big companies go under. Like big companies that you never thought would stop, but they stopped for whatever reasons. But COVID was that catalyst, and it was both shocking, but also we kind of saw it coming. Right,
Opportunity,
like, it was just
man.
like, okay, that's happening, and they're liquidating all their gear, and we're gonna go grab it. And
Yeah.
we're gonna push forward, and under the assumption and the hope that it's all gonna come back.
Right.
We're all gonna be back to doing what we love to do. You know, we still hold that high, and we hope that's gonna happen. Otherwise,
What's the point? Let that hang.
right? So yeah,
That's wonderful, man. Like, yeah, I was so proud. Just like seeing your posts again about, you know, you're literally selfie mode and, you know, showing the background. It's like, okay, we're here in like, you know,
Guildwood Go Station.
right? But like, it's like, oh, okay, this is
it's
good.
happening.
This is good. It gave that level of like of hope, you know,
for sure.
Yeah, because, man, again, it feels like it was 5 years ago, right? It feels
It's weird because
2020.
I think we discussed this last time I was on. Was, you know, I mean, I'm in my 40s now, but I've never had time off from music ever. Mm-hmm. Like ever since I started playing professionally, whatever that means. But I've never stopped. There was never a time where I was like, oh, I'm going to take a year off. Because first of all, I love what I do, so that would never be an option. But secondly, that just was never an option, right? So like when someone says you have to stay home and you can do nothing, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
you know. So I practiced for the first time in years, which was
Well, well, I was just gonna ask that. So, like in the off time, so obviously getting back into, you know, doing shedding, like getting everything like that. Did you start experimenting with any new gear? Like, Was there anything like that?
I'm a gear whore, so yeah. I mean, there's always Amazon was a beautiful thing. When,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, oh, just yeah, that comes to the house. That's fantastic. I was working on recordings at home because I couldn't leave the house. I was working actually more on rudiments, weirdly enough. Like the things I would tell my students to practice, I started actually doing.
Yeah.
Right? Because I hadn't done them since I was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So like as a guitar player, it was a weird thing to go, oh, let's just run scales for a day. And next day, let's do that again.
Yeah.
I never had the time for that. My time was always divided into rent a stage stuff, gear, loading, what are we doing for shows, and then my own personal shows with bands that I get hired into as a hired gun or that I play with regularly. Let's learn these songs. You're learning songs, you're not really practicing. You're just learning songs because you have the skill set to learn said songs.
Yeah.
Right? So like somebody says to me, I need you Friday night, learn these 45 songs. I can do that. I can do that on 24 hours notice. Only a select few hired guns can do that.
Yeah.
I take pride in that.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden was gone. So it was like, stop hitting the mic. Stop learning songs and let's just work on scales and theory and stuff that I literally had put aside for years.
Just break it down to fundamentals, man.
Fundamentals. And I warned all my students who were younger and coming up into the ranks and taking over our jobs. You know, I said to them, the guys that you looked up to are going to come out of COVID monsters.
Yeah.
You thought they were monsters before, they're going to come out, excuse me, even crazier good because they're all practicing.
Yeah.
This is all they know.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen some
crazy
videos.
stuff, man. On Instagram is like,
Yeah, you see these videos, you're like,
God, dude.
Yeah.
Just people coming out of the woodwork is like, where did you
melting.
learn to do that?
yeah, right? And it was like, cool. You know, like this is
time.
I went back to modes, man.
Yeah.
Like I went vocal modes.
crazy.
Dude, that kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Breath routine.
Yeah.
Like just back down to the basics of like what I learned when I was younger. And it's just like, man, I'm kicking, like it's kicking my ass.
Yeah.
Like,
We take it for granted as, you know, as professionals, right? I always put that in quotes because I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I know you talked about it with Piccone the other day. Like, what does it mean to be professional?
the hell does it, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, what does it mean to you?
It's funny when you guys talked about
that might be our question for everybody. What does
it mean to be a
you?
professional? I used to joke that if you got paid to do it, you're now a professional.
Yeah.
Like I did
That's-
I did
in a
drum
way,
kit a couple
yeah.
weeks ago, and it was like
You're a drummer.
I'm now like I'm not a fucking good drummer, you know. But I did the homework. I learned 45 songs. I knew all the stops and starts. I knew, you know, and I showed up and I pulled it off, and I was proud of myself for doing that because I only had 2 weeks to prep that, which would be long for me as a guitar player. 2 weeks, nothing. But as a drummer, like I practiced every day and I sweated it out. And 3 days before the show, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like it's rare for me to not be confident and have, you know, I had doubts. I had real doubts. Like I might have to call my friends who can play drums.
It's humbling,
like,
isn't it?
can
Right?
you go do this gig for me because I'm a loser? You know, and you know. But I went and did it, and I was happy I did it. But to be a professional musician, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that.
There is a
thing, right?
formula. Like
There's a
there's
formula,
got to be
sure.
a formula. It's just what parts of the formula are relevant enough to be distinguishable to be a professional musician.
Well,
Because there's that thing of like, do you own the instrument? How long have you practiced / played that instrument?
Sure.
Are you getting paid
Yep.
to use that instrument? And have you taught with that instrument?
Yeah.
Now, some parts of that equation don't matter.
Yeah.
And to some, it definitely doesn't matter because some people have never taught. Some people don't even own the damn instrument. Because I'm sorry, I went to school with some people that like couldn't afford to have a drum kit, so they practiced on their bed, and they got into the school. Wow. Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's like many vocalists I work with. I say, if you don't own your own mic, you're not a professional musician.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just not just a but you're just a vocalist,
Yeah.
right? You should own your own mic. That's your instrument. Right?
Yeah.
Why am I bringing a mic for you? Right? Like just because I own 100 mics. Like,
well,
you know?
especially now, it's amazing how
Especially
many
now.
singers don't bring their own microphones,
Yeah.
and it's like I've run sound on a couple of gigs. It's like, where's your mic?
Yeah.
Okay, not because I don't trust you, but like I've been using this mic for the past little bit.
Sure.
It's also been in other singers' faces.
Yeah.
It's for your protection that you
By
bring
far.
your own mic. And by the way, how long you been doing this? You don't have a goddamn microphone.
yeah,
Like,
and this is the
Not
thing,
that
right?
expensive for sure.
They're not.
They're really
They're not.
I mean, compared to the amount we spend on pedals and guitars.
Dude, you can get a
One
PG.
pedal,
One
150,
pedal.
right?
I bought like 4 PG 58s, the ones with the switch on it. They sound great.
Yeah, they're
And
fine.
you know, you self-monitor their feedback and stuff like that. It's like turn your mic off. You know,
Yeah.
so that way nothing feeds off on stage. And it's like they're like $50.
Yeah.
Get it. Just get it. Have a microphone.
So is that the gauge for professionals that they understand?
For vocalists, you're damn straight.
the weight of the gear
I will
they're
give shit to
playing with, right?
vocalists.
Yeah, but and everyone's different with it, right? Like I like the idea of when it's your sole source of income. Does that mean you're professional?
Well,
sure,
it's gotta be at
But
that
like
point.
I look at a lot of my friends and myself, and for me, I have 10 fingers in 10 different pots, all generating income. And that's the way my life has been for 20 plus years, right? I worked a corporate life at one point. I didn't like it. I left it to just do music and vowed I would never go back to that. And I don't think anybody would employ me now anyways, because for very obvious reasons. And I don't think I would do well in that scenario. But as a professional musician, I love seeing like peers of mine who are, touring in the States and touring with guys. And that's a level of professional musician. What we all do is a level of professional musician. This is all reality. The Weekend Warrior, are they professional musicians? I don't know. I mean, when they're not adhering to the level of money that should be asked for as a band,
The
that's
undercutting.
where I start getting a little upset.
So for those of you that don't know, Weekend Warriors are the hobbyist musicians that have the day job, that get together with their band of friends maybe once every blue moon and
Manny teaches them.
spend an ungodly
Someone's gotta
amount.
teach 'em.
An
Helping the system.
They spend an
love
ungodly
them,
amount of money on instruments. So their instruments
Lucky
are very
bastards.
pretty and shiny, but they can't really do much with them. So it does get very confusing to a lot of people, where it's like, wow, that's a beautiful instrument. However,
Yeah.
they're the hobbyists, right? So
And
they're the first ones to undercut the professional musicians who actually make a living at only and solely.
Well,
the
you always
music.
hear, I'll just play for free, right? But it's like, well, you can't because
That screws us over.
and then if you play one gig a year, if you just play one gig, everybody's gonna come out,
Of course.
and then the place is packed, and then it just makes us look bad.
And unfortunately, that is the industry and the
Yeah.
environment we live in and where we are geographically, right? So there's certain, I have buddies who work in Vegas and they play the same casino 7 nights a week and they do very well. And there are strategies for that. Where we are, it's tougher for sure. Is that our fault? Maybe. I don't want to speak that too much because there's too many variables. But it is tricky, right? So that's why I caution even my younger students. I said, it's not just about playing live. If you want to live off playing live, I mean, I've done it. I once, a couple years in a row, I did 250 shows both years. And it's strenuous not only on your brain and on your self-confidence and everything, because there's nothing like feeding off a crowd. But when you know you're playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is probably going to be a shitty gig because you're playing to nobody or nobody who cares or your background music, you got to have a certain amount of thick skin to deal with that and
a lot of love for
mindset to put yourself as a positive vibe merchant and go, I'm going to treat this as a paid live rehearsal.
Exactly.
Right? Which is what I put myself in every time. It's like, okay, yeah, I know the parameters of this gig. I'm background music, and I'm going to practice in front of people and kind of laugh and collect my money. But it is tricky when your passion becomes tied to the money part. Right?
That's how you know you're a professional.
Yes.
Maybe,
Right?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
That's the flip, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the flip. I mean, if you get hired as a mechanic, your first day as a mechanic, you're not a professional mechanic yet.
You're an apprentice.
You're an apprentice, so you got to work your way up. I work at a mechanic shop, but I'm not a mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting.
There's a lot to it. I think that there's even a separate equation of like, are you a professional insert instrument here or a professional musician? So I think the term musician is used almost like the word sorry.
Well played.
So it's a very forgiving word. So to me, to be a musician is somebody who has the 10 fingers
Yeah.
in different things, is able to weave, and basically it's a mastering of the craft itself.
Sure.
So the entrepreneurial part of it, the instrumental part of it, the practice part of it, all of that encompasses what it is to be a musician. Being a professional insert an instrument here is kind of just going doing the gig on your instrument, and that's all you're doing, kind of thing. But the moment you start weaving into different things, and this can be kind of controversial, I guess, but I don't think it's I think it's kind of dummy proof, because to be a professional businessman, as vague as that term can possibly be, to be a professional businessman, you have to know a lot about law, you have to know about business, you have to know about marketing, you have to know. So that's businessman. Why isn't musician the same as businessman?
Sure.
Right? So, because I'm a professional vocalist, but I like to consider myself to be a professional musician as well, because 10 fingers and 10 different things within the music industry. So, be careful how you use the term musician.
It's a tricky one, right?
It is. It's weird, man.
It is
Anyway, let's take a break. Let's do some commercials. Keep an eye out for the first one, because it's Rent a Stage, and check out some of the amazing stuff that they have on their website. And mind the voice. That's doing We'll be right back.
At Rent a Stage Canada, we focus on providing mobile stage rentals, sound services, and lighting with complete customer satisfaction. We will meet and exceed all your expectations. We specialize in small to medium outdoor festivals and have provided complete stage and production services for over 150 festivals in Ontario. Our stages and production trailers are designed and built to maximize efficiency in an effort to reduce costs for you, the client. See for yourself at rentastage.ca and book your consultation today.
On this day in music history. On this day, don't freak out. This is weird. 2006, Queen.
Okay.
So Freddie Mercury had been long gone at this point. So Queen's greatest hits album was declared the best-selling UK album of all time by the official UK charts company. The chart was made up of sales figures from the past 50 years. So they're taking into account all the artists that have come out in the 50-year span, right? And we're talking Bowie, we're talking Beatles, we're talking
Elvis. Yeah, we're back to 56.
We're huge artists. So it showed that their greatest hits compilation had sold 5.4 million copies. The Beatles was second place. I think this was only for the UK.
Yeah.
But the Beatles was second place with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It doesn't say how much they sold in the 50-year mark. But
So that was their greatest Beatles selling album, in the UK.
According to this,
Interesting.
But I think it's since changed. I used to work for a company that distributed to the HMVs and Sunrise Records and stuff like that. Revolver was the most requested one.
Really?
I could see that.
Way over Sgt. Pepper's. I think the quota, and this was in 2000. I want to say 2014, 2015. Maybe even 2016. I can't remember. But if a Beatles record was being shipped out to these locations, and we dealt with Amazon and shit too, it was always Revolver.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that anniversary edition that they did where they had the 180 gram that they remastered.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I sold very few that year for Sgt. Pepper. It was always Revolver. The most requested album that I had to distribute, Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, every single order
It's a classic.
had at
Massive.
least 50 copies per store.
My
of Dark
earliest
Side.
musical memory is Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When I came to Canada, like my parents played it nonstop. And
Really?
The wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like I just remember like it's weird when you look back at your earliest memory, and I just remember being like 3 or 4 years old and hearing those tunes, and then the Wall album, and
I have the visual memory of the pyramid more than
Yeah.
like that was rock and roll. That was like when I saw that I was like, that's what rock and roll looks like. Is that album, right?
totally,
It's like,
yeah.
and it was and it's crazy.
I think my first Pink Floyd memory was The Wall, just because the cover was so striking with the lettering font that it was on top
Yeah.
of
It was
this white
scary.
brick wall. It was a little bit
It was scary.
It was a little bit
For
creepy.
me, it was I saw the Wall movie,
Yeah.
Right.
and it scared the crap out of me because I was too young
confused.
to understand what that even meant.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's overwhelming, and I
Yeah.
watched it as an adult, and I went, "Oh, that the idea of a concept album, which is just not happening anymore."
Yeah.
Right? But it's like that was a real thing in the
Well,
80s.
Kanye just did a
Kind of,
concept.
but-
he
but-
just did a concept.
Well, speaking of concept albums, because I got the
Dun,
same
dun.
feeling. It didn't necessarily it wasn't trying to emulate anything, but I got the same feeling from that movie as I did with David Bowie's last album,
Oh, okay.
Black Star.
yeah.
Black Star,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Because that was also a concept album, basically just revolving on his death and like what was upcoming. Right, that album messed me up.
Yeah, that was a heavy album.
That was such a heavy album, and like the fact that like he did it and then left this world.
Yeah, nuts.
He
eh?
knew it.
He knew,
too.
and
He
knowing
knew-
that he's gonna leave this world,
knew
right?
what was going on. All of his music videos showed that, and the music was so quintessential David Bowie.
Sure.
But the message was a little bit more like on the nose.
Yeah.
And I got that same feeling of like, this is a lot. But it's one of those albums, like I listened to it when it first came out. I'm taking a beat before I listen to it again with, he's been gone for a little bit now, and it's like I'm not so emotionally invested into it. Maybe I am. I won't know until I listen to it again.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how music kind of has that visual as well as, the audio sensory that it has for, I think for musicians it's a little bit heavier because
We're looking for those things though.
we are. Dark Side of the Moon had sounds that hadn't been heard before
At
yet.
that time, it was nuts.
There was a lot going on there, and I think with Black Star we had heard. I mean, like with the evolution of recording and producing and everything like that, we hear a lot of. We've basically heard a lot of what we needed to hear musically or production wise, I should say. Black Star brought us back
Yeah.
to like, oh, okay, this feels like that era, and with like it's I don't know how to explain it. You have in your mind the entire album, and it's a story all the way through, and you have in your mind it's like he knows he's dying. He knows he's dying. He knows he's dying, and it's his
heavy.
opus. It's literally and figuratively his opus. It is the final movement of David Bowie. And I think that if they do what Queen did with their greatest hit stuff, posthumously, it'll just ruin the mystique.
I'm glad he could say that word because when I see that word
I
spelled,
know.
Post Malone. I don't know.
I know. It's
Yeah, after death.
But
Yeah.
but I think it goes to show, like, so with bands like Pink Floyd and David Bowie and Prince, even Prince with his stuff, when like the last albums, because he put out like 3 albums at the same time with 3 different bands, right? And all in like just before he passed away in 2016 he passed away. 2015 he released like 3 albums.
Yeah.
And there's talks about another one that Questlove is going to be producing, but it's nuts, right? The guy has like over 100 hours worth of music that he can that they can produce. But I think his living will said that he didn't even want that to happen.
Yes.
But with Queen, I think it's so going back to their greatest hits. I think that they can afford to do that because their music was a little bit more on the fun side of rock and roll with the theatrical rock that it was, and just every single that they ever had in history was a banger, and just invokes this nostalgia instead of that feeling of triggering a certain emotion other than like, this is cool music. You know, like this is a cool thing. It's still genius. And I think it's at the same level of genius, it just in a different way. So where those other artists were invoking something that you constantly carried something in your mind while you're listening to it, this allows you to kind of escape a little. The Queen stuff allows you to escape. Sure.
Like every time I hear Another One Bites the Dust, I'm like, that bass tone's killer.
Oh, you mean Ice Ice Baby?
Yeah, obviously.
Oh no, that's Under Pressure. I'm really messing this up.
God.
I'm hitting everybody. At least I'm singing the Queen vein.
I like Queen.
But yeah, I was I like him more now, especially his bass playing and everything. I never got it. My first memory of Queen was the name escapes me in the video, but where Freddie's dressed up as the clean lady or the wife, and that was really
Want to Break Free? No.
Yeah,
it was I Want to Break Free. Yeah,
and now like the song makes so much more sense now. But I never got it. Like we didn't know he was gay or anything, and I just was like, this doesn't make sense. This video or nothing, right? It's like but it was really confusing at a young age. I was just like, I didn't get it, and I didn't like the song. Right. I mean, now I do. But when you're 6, you're just like, I don't get this.
So if going back to like their 70s stuff. So in the era of Bohemian Rhapsody, their songs were kind of like weaving in and out of like, there was Meatloaf doing that stuff, Rocky Horror Picture Show, that kind of thing, where theatrical rock was definitely on the rise. If you were in the rock scene, that's pretty much what you were listening to in clubs and stuff like that. That stuff impresses the hell out of me. Yeah. Right? Because there's almost operatic. Their songs had movements. Like Bohemian Rhapsody, as much as it can be overplayed,
it's beautiful.
It has movements.
But that's like Wayne's World brought that back. It was just that was the smartest thing they could have done.
Genius.
When did Wayne's World that was the first Wayne's World, correct?
Yeah,
the first movie.
92, something like that. Yeah.
So it was just after Freddie died, because Freddie died in 91.
Really?
Yeah, he died in 91.
Yeah, that makes
November of 91.
Okay.
So Wayne's World had to be after.
Had to be after.
And that was by happenstance, because I heard in an interview with Mike Myers that he remembered doing that as a kid to Bohemian Rhapsody, driving down the streets in Toronto, banging their heads to Bohemian Rhapsody when it first came out. It wasn't a ploy to promote or celebrate Freddie Mercury in any way after his death.
A whole new generation, though, right?
That's exactly what it was. It was a genuine and innocent thing to do, which was an amazing thing, and it completely revived the song.
Well, when you're not fake it, people like it.
Yeah.
Right. When it comes from your heart, people will gravitate to it.
Totally.
For sure.
And he's such a dude. But it was crazy. Like all of a sudden Queen's popular again. And that was my, I was like, oh, and then you start listening. I'm like that song was just like, whoa.
My first experience with Somebody to Love was actually from a commercial.
Yeah.
There was an insurance commercial that was on, and that was the theme to the commercial. May have been like State Farm or something like that.
State Farm.
And Somebody to Love was on it, and I was a kid. I wasn't putting 2 and 2 together yet, but later finding out it is a great jingle.
It's great.
One of my favorite songs that Queen did was "Love of My Life."
Yeah,
that's a gorgeous song.
Great tune. I was really impressed. I went and saw Queen with Adam Lambert. I think at the ACC. And was just legitimately blown away. Like, Adam's a fantastic singer.
Oh, he's scary
and sits
good.
in with that band in a scary good way.
Well, yeah, because he's not trying to sound like Freddie, which is what most people that jumped in the front. And I think George Michael was like a close second for me.
Yeah, for sure. But
that's what they wanted first, right?
But
But that era of that was strikingly good. When they did Love of My Life, and it was just Brian May out there singing, and then the hologram, the video footage of Freddie singing along, like. For me as a production guy, I was like,
yeah,
you tie that all together.
You're synced.
This is fantastic, But yeah, the only part of the show I didn't like was, I'll get a lot of hate for this, was Brian May's guitar solo.
Yeah.
He did this whole like typical 80s solo stint where the guitar player goes, "Look at me," and it was too long and too much over the top delay in a stadium. It was just sonically bouncing everywhere, and I was getting confused and. I wanted to just go to sleep. But
yeah, Brian May doesn't really stay diatonic either, so that's a lot of clashing.
It was just like, oh, this is odd. But I've seen that era of guitar player still thinks that that random guitar solo is important. And generationally, we don't care anymore. Yeah. Right?
What was the setup? So Roger Taylor was playing, Brian May was playing. Was there anybody playing bass yet at that point?
Yeah, well, Deacon's been out of the fold since the 90s, right? After they did... that big thing where Metallica and Guns N' Roses played, he kind of said, pay me, ask my permission, give me my money, I'll stay at home.
He had nothing to do with the movie.
No,
Zero, right? But he collects probably a handsome paycheck.
He's fine. He's doing fine.
He's doing okay. But the other two guys are running it, and what's the drummer? Rogers? Something Rogers? I forget the drummer's name.
The drummer? Oh, Roger Taylor.
Roger Taylor, yeah. His son.
I got that name right.
His son plays percussion in the band, I believe. And
sweet.
They have a bunch of hired gun studio musicians who bring in a
They had a second guitar player and stuff, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like I know, like at some of those bigger shows, I like even with like Green Day, there was somebody playing in the back.
Oh, for sure.
That just beefs it up a little bit.
You look at Green Day, a 3-piece, and then they released American Idiot, and it's like we can't do that album live with just the three of us. So they brought on a second guitar player and a keyboard player, and it's like this is what happens when you get to that level of band. You
even
to.
Queen,
or you're playing the tracks.
When Freddie wasn't playing the piano and he'd get up from the piano, you always see that guy sliding in to play.
To play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a visual too, right? Like you don't care. You're still watching Freddie. People won't even notice that someone else is going.
I mixed a band at a wedding, literally less than a month ago, that did Bohemian Rhapsody.
You told me about this, and it still blows my mind.
During soundtrack, they're like, "Let's just check our harmonies, guys," and they started at the beginning of Bohemian. And I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then during the show, they only did the beginning, like part those harmonies, and then at the show for the wedding, they played all of Bohemian Rhapsody, including the middle part that Queen
didn't even play.
Never
that.
did. Yeah, I'm just. They did the whole silhouette of the man and the give and take and the call and response thing, and I was like, and it was epic, and I was like, oh my god.
And that's cool. What style of band were they?
They're an East Coast band. Like they're fantastic.
And they were flown in for that wedding, correct?
Flown in to do that wedding, yeah.
That's crazy, man. Good on them.
Yeah.
Do you know their name by any chance?
Signal Hill.
Signal Hill.
Yeah.
Dude, you guys are welcome here.
They
anytime.
were epic, super nice guys, knew their stuff, did everything from that East Coast stomp along stuff to Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, I mean, what more could you want?
That's not that's
they
not
even played Brown Eyed Girl.
Good for them. Professional.
They're professionals. They're professional musicians.
So is it fair that they have a greatest hits as the best album? I remember that's a good point. People get really mad at it doesn't count. It's the greatest hits. Sgt. Pepper should be number one.
If you look at Queen, for example,
I am.
Every single one of their songs from albums
1 through 10. Ha ha ha.
At least had half of those songs on the singles charts.
Still a greatest hits.
It's still a greatest hits. Okay. So, Michael Jackson's "This Is It."
Yes. Love it.
Ended up on the U.S. charts. Do you qualify that, even though it's a remastering of his greatest hits?
No.
Ooh,
well, no, like I just remember having these conversations with people growing up. It's just not fair. Greatest hits.
Don't get me wrong. I'm in agreement with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Exactly. Yeah, I think like when the full, I think it's the full album, right? Greatest Hits was always known as a cash grab. It was part of the contract. Sure. You make 3 albums and a greatest hits, 4 albums and a greatest hits, right? If all else fails, they were making greatest hits. I was watching that documentary, and like after the first album, I don't know how.
Okay, that
right?
bothers me.
Because they had to fulfill the contract, and they're like, your band is nothing, so we're gonna re-release your hit, and you're gonna do 2 extra studio tracks, and we're gonna call it a greatest. Like that's where. I mean, the record companies once again ruined the whole thing, right? But I get greatest hits are great.
That's why they're greatest hits.
for the first person, like what is a Queen, right? Here's the greatest hits. Go home and then you go home, listen to it, and then you.
So that's where greatest hits or even compilation albums played a part in my music path. We were talking about this during break. Yeah, we actually have breaks. We just don't sit here and wait for you.
That's how my glass gets full again.
Yeah. There was a blues compilation album that I had bought when CDs first became a thing. So before that, I was listening to Elvis Greatest Hits.
Yes.
On
cassettes.
On cassettes.
On cassettes, yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And I always found liner notes and cassettes to be a lot cooler because of the way that they folded out. But you couldn't read the friggin' things because it was so tiny. Yeah, that's
what I was gonna say. I did like when you bought it, and it just kept getting
magnifying
longer.
glass.
Like,
magnifying
no
glass.
Like,
size 3 fonts.
Yeah, I had Elvis's Good Rockin' Tonight, which was a compilation, a greatest hits compilation. But my first CD that I got was Best of the Blues.
Okay.
That's a hard one.
It is.
What should we put on
because there wasn't standardized a lot of standardized blues songs on that record either. Okay. There was like Ray Charles's Hard Times, which has jazz changes.
Yeah.
And there was it was my introduction to Jimi Hendrix's Red House, there was Boom Boom by John Lee Hooker. B.B. King, Thrill Is Gone was on there. And they had 2 B.B. King ones. They had B.B. King, Thrill Is Gone, and How Blue Can You Get?
How Blue Can You Get? Yeah.
The live version, where he breaks a string and he changes the string. That was on the record. That was out of prison. He did that.
Yeah.
And then there was Etta James, Rather Go Blind, which they considered blues. For this compilation record, which is why I love this compilation record so much, because there was a lot of stuff that came out of Chess Records, in the early days of rhythm and blues before rock and roll was a thing, right? Because I'm pretty sure there was a Chuck Berry song on there as well. And that's when I love compilation albums, when I'm learning about, like when I'm introduced, I should say, to new artists that I wouldn't otherwise listen to. I bought the album because there was a Ray Charles song on there, but now I know a lot about these other ones. I
totally grew up with that, man. I remember buying a Woodstock album because I was like, I know 3 tunes, but I didn't know who the other guys were. I'm like, Melanie was on there, and like I was like, this is great. Like I found out of other bands in that era that the record stores wouldn't have the thing. Then find it, and then
which leads to the argument of like if streaming playlists went by that methodology of instead of yes, it is trying to introduce people to new artists on Spotify or whatever it is, then should it be narrowing the realm of the genre, or has genre really destroyed the music industry at this point?
Interesting question.
Because I never liked genre.
No.
But when I'm looking for songs on Spotify and I click on a genre and it's not that genre, I get physically mad.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of anger. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not it.
This is not blues.
So
this is not jazz.
Yeah.
Like there's so where Manny and I went to school, there's a lot of jazz purists who we had a hard time getting along with. However, now outside of school, when we listen to jazz, we expect it to be goddamn jazz.
Sure.
Don't give me this and like this thing and tell me that these are proper jazz changes, because they're not, right? It's popified or it's a fusion with something else, right? So I feel the same way about other musics, where it's like streaming music has definitely broadened the term genre, where it's like, okay, here's pop, here's alt pop, here's e-pop, here's K-pop, here's rock and roll, here's alt rock, here's, I don't remember that many subcategories growing up.
No.
There was rock and roll, there was pop,
Whatever HMV showed, that was
whatever classics.
Metal.
I remember
rock.
Who did I go? I went to HMV once.
Yeah.
And I picked up a Jimi Hendrix DVD, and I was looking at it, and I went to go put it back, and the store clerk got mad at me because I put it in the classical section.
Yes. Well, it's definitely not classical, but it is.
I said, "It's a classic."
You're so young. You're young and dumb.
And he had no
Good that you're
response.
handsome.
No response. But that's actually a good point, Manny, because no, I don't think that a compilation album should qualify to be on the greatest album to be on that list.
Because it happens a lot, right? Like, are we talking greatest hits or greatest compilation?
This was technically a greatest hits.
Yeah. So like the Eagles' greatest hits
That's
became
the
the
big
same.
one.
It was a massive.
That was the thing
massive
for the
them,
States,
right?
for sure.
Tom Petty's greatest, same thing. It was monstrous, right?
Because, I mean, it'd be different. So, say you release an album, and every song on that album is a hit.
Yeah.
That's your greatest hits, because it's literally every hit on that
yeah.
album. So, Michael Jackson's Thriller
Sure.
should have been his greatest hits,
In theory.
because they were all, every song was a single, and they were all killed everybody else in the pop game, right? So, yeah, I agree with you. However, it's Queen. I have a soft spot for Queen. I'm glad they took it over the Beatles. I'm just saying.
Understood.
Okay? It's controversial from a vocalist standpoint.
Yeah, for vocalists.
From a vocalist
Freddie,
standpoint,
old.
I just the same reasons why I love Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, and these guys aren't like super refined vocalists. John Lennon's not a refined vocalist. No. Paul McCartney has more refined qualities to him.
For sure.
But I mean, if we're trying to, Freddie's not even in the same sport when you try and compare vocally with what he was doing at that time in comparison with other artists coming out of the UK of that time.
Yep.
Did that style of music come out because they were playing stadiums?
Ooh.
Or was
I don't know.
Or was it the Rocky Horror Picture Show? That was
No,
like,
because
like,
Bohemian Rhapsody came out when they were playing like clubs.
but everybody had the stadium goal, right? Since Zeppelin, kind of like were they like? Because I've actually heard like songwriters be like, well, I mean, dum 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 dum. They thought of
Writing
that.
for a
They
stadium.
wrote that on purpose for a stadium, soccer games stadium. They were thinking, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder.
I think yes, and
Not everybody,
but I think on top of that, they were thinking of basically what was going on in soundtracks at the time as well. Because there was a lot of Star Wars was huge, and musicals and everything like that. If you listen to like song scoring back in the 70s, it was insane.
Yeah.
I own a lot of soundtrack, like the real sound.
Same.
Right?
Like movie scores.
yeah.
Movie scores.
But even like of the smaller movies and like the black exploitation, or I never know how to say that, but the Coffee soundtrack, the Superfly soundtrack, and like those were like, because they had actually played the back, like they wrote background themes, obviously for a car chase or something, but it was funky and it was groovy,
Superfly.
and it was there.
Was that Curtis Mayfield on that one? Yeah.
That was his Curtis.
Curtis Mayfield.
He was okay.
Love that
He's
guy,
aight.
man.
Yeah. All right.
So groovy.
That whole era, funk and theater rock
Yeah.
Yeah.
were like the go-tos for, depending on
Or was
what
it
you
the
were
cocaine?
watching.
Was it the cocaine?
100% the cocaine.
Okay, it's always the cocaine.
Yes.
What was the 70s? Was the drug of choice was heroin. In the 70s.
Yes. Well, there's that too.
But yeah, theater rock definitely, because when Meatloaf came out too, he wasn't playing no stadiums. He was playing theaters. He was playing soft seaters. I don't think I've ever seen
nobody
Meatloaf play a
starts on
stadium.
Right? He must.
I don't think Meatloaf ever really played a stadium, unless it was accidental.
We accidentally booked you in here. That just never happens.
Quite the accident.
I don't think he ever played.
Yeah.
I think he only went for the soft seaters or like the opera houses kind of thing, right? Those refurbished opera houses. It was the same thing with because Elton John was doing the same thing. He was playing clubs. I don't think he ever wanted to play stadiums. That messed with his life. That messed his life up playing that large of
getting
stadiums.
to that large of a venue. It's a different ballgame.
It's the same reason why the Beatles didn't want to play anymore. They couldn't hear themselves. They didn't have the equipment they have now.
Well, I found that like there was that Foo Fighters documentary from like a decade ago now.
Yeah.
And Dave Grohl talks about when they got the Madison Square Garden gig, right? And he was just like, for 6 months, I just kept waking up every day going, we're playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Like he goes, it was a daunting task. We played clubs, we played arenas, but this is Madison Square Garden. It's just a different ball game. And he goes, you don't just show up and just play your show. You have to think on a whole new level of what that show entails, right? So,
Wembley,
there's no playbook for that, right? No. There's nobody saying, hey, this is how it's done. You know?
Yeah, I remember watching a Bublé documentary and him talking about playing Madison Square Garden as a jazz, like a crooner.
Yeah.
Which had never been done before.
Sure.
Right? It's the same when like Kevin Hart wanted to do football stadiums, right?
Yeah, totally.
Hadn't been done before, right?
The smallest man.
The smallest man with the biggest goddamn career.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Man.
I listen to his podcast all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Comedy Gold Mines. And comedians, like, they rag on him all the time. Oh, Mr. Box Office, you know, that kind of thing. And he talks about how he's like, it sickens me how careful I have to be when I speak.
Yeah.
Because there are people that depend on me, and if I say the wrong thing, then 40 people are out of a job, basically, right? So yeah. Anyway, going back. So what the hell were we talking about before Kevin Hart?
Queen compilation.
Stadiums.
Big no.
Stadium
stuff. Yeah.
Stadium stuff. Yeah. Like, okay. There's a question there. Do bands belong in stadiums?
Oh.
As a live production,
what a nightmare!
Not sound wise, but
think
money
about it,
wise. Putting enough people in there.
I watched a whole documentary on Rush on one of their final tours, talking about playing arenas. So not even stadiums, but like big arenas.
Yeah.
And you know, their sound guy was like, "Oh, I walk around the whole arena and go, okay, what does it sound like up here?" And that task is daunting. For me to do a food truck festival and I walk around going, what does it sound like here? And I'm just one guy working off an iPad, you know, type of thing. And I'm trying to give credit to the performers on stage and make it sound as good as possible. You're dealing with walls and things bouncing off things, and you're trying to do it at a time when there's no people there to absorb sound. So you're getting a complete unrealistic
sound going into the abyss.
You know, and it's a very... this is... My brain wants to explode just thinking about it. There's guys way more talented than I who understand that world. I just couldn't imagine having to do that on a day in, day out basis, right?
But going to those large shows, we've all been to those larger shows.
Hardly ever go.
And it's not good.
No.
It rarely is.
It's sound-wise, it's not good.
It gets to the point, like the last, it's been years, but the last big indoor stadium show I saw was Slipknot with Korn, I think, at the ACC.
Holy crap.
Right? It was, I don't want to say 5-6 years ago now, but
more.
But I purposely, my brother bought tickets, and I said, where'd you buy tickets? He goes, the 300 level dead center. I was like, perfect. Yeah. We're dead center of the stage, and we're elevated. I'm not in the pit, so I can actually watch and enjoy. And we're the sound guy would be, because ultimately where he is the best sound, right? And,
should be anyway.
But we're higher up, so hopefully it's good. And it was okay.
Yeah.
You know, it was okay, but
there's certain seats that are great.
Totally. But you're dealing with tuned down madness, and you're really going for the visual, right? People go to see a show.
Yeah. So in terms of arenas, so there are theaters that hold arena-sized audience members. So Royal Albert Hall is one of them. La Scala in Italy. They're all large scale seating or a capacity for a theater. Theaters are built for the acoustics of whatever's on stage. That's why opera singers can go on stage at those places micless.
Yeah.
It's built for that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I would sooner take an opportunity to go see somebody at Royal Albert Hall where it still seats the 5,000 to 7,000 amount of people, but in a place that's built for that kind of atmosphere. That, like, it was literally built for that reason, to host that many people, get the sound to everybody equally, and still have a banger of a time, right? The moment you start getting into the tens and tens of thousands of people, dude in the back is not hearing shit.
No.
He's not hearing shit. I went to go see Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Molson Amphitheater, and it's just like, yeah.
Yep.
I know exactly now. I've been at the amphitheater so many times.
Yeah,
where to kind of
exactly.
sit.
You know
Where to sit.
right?
Exactly.
Right,
To
it's
get
like
the best sound.
And I'll be like, okay, this kind of, I don't care about this band. So let's go to the lawns and just drink our beers.
Yeah.
But like there's the 3 levels of the extra speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're in the front row, it's actually the worst because the sound's going over you.
Oh,
Yeah,
by
it's
far.
so
I've
it's
been
the
in that
worst
pit
place to
many
be.
times.
Yeah.
But I also, the last show I saw at the amphitheater, I was literally beside the sound guy. My
Right.
seats were right beside his booth, and I was like, and I said to my wife, "We're in the best seats." And she's like, "Why?" I said, "Because we're gonna hear everything perfectly."
Exactly.
Because that's where he is, right? And as a sound guy myself, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Where I'm standing is where I'm gonna make it sound best. You know?
Yeah, well,
Because you can't. You're not going to be like,
Yeah.
I'm going to turn down the bass because I feel.
I wonder what it sounds like for the guy sitting out in the field, the far left corner, right? Yeah.
Because you sit in those where they have like the extra speakers, and if
Yeah.
you're like this way and they're behind you, that's the worst.
well, live sound production is an art form in the sense where, like, if you're playing in a place that's respected the fact that it is, like, you respect the fact that it was built for that atmosphere, you want to accommodate that atmosphere as much as possible. When you're playing in a place that wasn't, and they didn't put the effort
don't
into
care.
like, now your job became twice as hard, it's like there's a little bit of resentment there.
Well, I
right?
remember seeing when I was 18, my uncle at the time bought me tickets to see Rod Stewart at the Sky Dome.
Sorry?
Sky Dome.
So,
Wait, what year?
it would have been 94, 95.
So he was doing his jazz stuff at that point, wasn't he?
So the idea of this tour was, it was funny because my uncle, he came to me and he goes, "I bought you tickets to a heavy metal concert."
That's
I was
adorable.
like, cool. I was 18. I was like, this is freaking cool. And he gives me Rod Stewart tickets. To him, Rod Stewart was heavy metal.
Yeah.
And
Well, he
I-
wore leather pants.
Right? And I was like, oh.
And he was Scottish.
And I
so.
took my girlfriend at the time, and we went. And the first time Rod didn't show, and it was a complete reschedule. 4 months later, he comes back, and Rod comes out, and it's Sky Dome, which I will always call it Sky Dome. I don't care what the fuck people
I'm
say.
with you. Yeah.
And he comes out, and Rod's like, "Sorry, I missed it last time. Had some problems. I'm gonna play every single number one single I've ever had, ever, in chronological order."
Nice.
So he
That
started
would've
with
been fun.
Faces stuff, and like.
He did Faces stuff too?
Oh yeah, he just was like, and he would be like, 1970, I released this song with blah 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 blah, and
cool.
and it was very cool. Every album, and they would show it on the big screen at the Teletron at the Sky Dome. But the Sky Dome, they purposely tarped off a whole section of it because like the Sky Dome holds tens of thousands of people,
Yeah.
right? And he probably could have sold it out, but it was more of a, whoever's coming here, we want to make it sound as good as possible. And it was tarped off. And I remember seeing that, not understanding it at the time. Looking back on it now, I'm like,
I've been to many
because
of
that's a
those.
hard room to make sound good. It's like,
Yeah, because
don't-
essentially the sound is doing this and this.
Yeah,
So
like-
reflections are a nightmare.
nightmare. He did everything soundtrack stuff. Like it was nuts. And it was a 3.5 hour show.
Wow.
I learned that he was a soccer player.
Yes,
Right?
very avid soccer player.
Best part was there was one point in the show where they brought out 100 soccer balls
Yeah.
and he was kicking them into the crowd.
That's
and
amazing.
the Teletron was following it. And he kicked one out and it followed the ball and it nailed this lady in the face. And the whole
Amazing.
crowd,
Ooh, yeah.
you know, and he's like, sorry.
That's heavy metal, kids. That's heavy metal.
And that was heavy metal. And we were the youngest people there by far. There was MILFs
like wearing leather. Like it was, we were young.
That's what I got when I went to go see Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a very cool show. But sonically, it sounded great because of what they acoustically treated the dome.
They've actually said that, like, yeah, they're gonna make it smaller. Like that was a thing at some point.
That
like,
should be the concert staple, though, because I mean, doing the Foo Fighters
funny.
360 stage kind of thing is a nightmare to do.
Nightmare.
And when
more
you're playing,
people.
yeah,
More
more
butts,
people,
more money.
more
Money,
ticket
money,
sales.
money, right?
At the same
bar
time,
sales.
like less experience,
Nah, of course. But
way less experience. Like I don't know, man. Like I don't know if it's the music snob in me or the sound snob, but like. Having that idea, you could still play the arena, so you lose 600 seats, let's say 600.
No, way more.
You think it'd be more? Yeah. Breaking 1,000?
But you just play back to back, which gets taxing.
But tarp off that side, and you're playing. It's One Direction. It's going out.
I'd go see One Direction any day.
I saw One Direction.
Of course you did. I know you did.
Wasn't my choice.
Oh, you tried over me.
Yeah, right. You went to go boom because they wouldn't take you.
At the time, I was doing opera
Can't
stuff.
afford razors.
I was auditioning for the Canadian Tenors at the time.
Attaboy.
Yeah, I was trying to be like Il Divo.
Yes, Il Divo.
Pretty much.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that didn't go well. Well, there was a competition going on between the Canadian Tenors, Il Divo, and Il Volo in Italy, and
God.
so Simon Cowell had Il Divo.
Yeah.
Right. Il Volo was being run basically by these Italian maestros out in Italy, and they were like contemporizing, doing basically what Il Divo does, right? Contemporizing classical songs and making pop songs into classical. So popera. It's popera.
Opera. I
Another
like that.
genre.
And then the Canadian Tenors, before the whole All Lives Matter scandal that they had done during the Canadian national anthem, they changed the lyrics and kicked that dude out. So there was there was an opening, and guess who auditioned? So I was in an opera duo at the time, and we did like a couple numbers with them. We didn't like do a tour or anything like that. We sang with them, and then they became the Tenors. And then things changed and stuff like that, and then that whole genre kind of just fizzled.
Okay.
So like,
Because it's not good.
Popper's rough. Popper's rough, man. Well, back then it was like
It's just not good.
now it's not. No, it's not.
Snap my fingers.
No, you know what it was for? It was like it's a Valentine's Day special. That's all it's for.
Exactly.
Right?
By far.
It's
Beautiful.
strings. And I'm sorry, when you have Andrea Bocelli, that's like, if he was doing a tour the same time Il Divo was doing a tour, who do you think people are going to go and see?
Yeah.
They're going to go see
master.
Andrea, for
He's
sure.
You're going to go see One Direction, yeah.
They're going to go see One Direction. But it always blew my mind how, like, when One Direction was signed by Simon Cowell, it's like, it's the same dude that has Il Divo.
Yeah.
What a roster.
It's a massive roster for sure. I agree, yeah.
But then that whole, like,
We should have Simon on the show.
Oh, let's call him.
but that whole generation, not generation, but that whole spectrum of classical contemporary or contemporary classical, depending on where you lean, only and always ends up in one place. Yes, you're playing these beautiful like ruins in Italy and like these amazing lake backdrops and like these these Greek palaces and stuff like that. You always and only end up in casinos. That is where you end up. That's the only place that you can play after your ticket sales start to drop.
Yeah, you do casino circuit. Makes sense.
That's it.
And that's why everybody got mad when the 70s bands started hitting the casinos. Right? The foreigners and whatnot.
I did the casino circuit. It's actually kind of fun.
Other than getting
Don't doubt it.
all the, checked on the way in, checked on the way out.
Yeah.
But,
That was yeah.
That's it.
I
Once
stayed,
you're in,
so yeah,
you can't-
basically
you can't-
they just want to make sure you're not stealing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or bring anything in. Right?
I lived
Like,
in the casino hotel for a little while,
Nice.
and It's very, that was the weird part. Yeah. It's like it's like TSA agents checking you.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's crazy.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. But I mean, at the same time, it's like asses in seats, man. It's easy crowd. It's an easy crowd.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
If you're a hired gun, or like you're literally just like, you know, Johnny Bravo is gonna go and sing like Sinatra tunes, you're getting asses in seats.
Yep.
People just want that to break from the slot machines.
I've seen a few shows at our local casino up in Ramo there. Kenny Rogers was the best. It was so cool, you know, because
Kenny's the man.
I mean, it was Kenny, you know, and it was just like you're seeing him do Lady and The Gambler, and you know, it was the best part of the show was when the power went out. This was before Ramo built the facility,
Right.
So they had a tent in the parking lot. And that's how they used to do their outdoor shows.
Really?
And my dad phones me. He's like, I got tickets to Kenny Rogers. You want to go? And I'm like, yeah. And we sat there. And at one point, the power went out. And all you heard was a snare drum. Right?
Amazing.
Whatever song he was in. And it was only out for maybe, 5 to 10 seconds. And the power came out. And the band was still perfectly in sync.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my. And
God
that's
bless
for me
that drummer.
as a musician, I was like, oh my God.
God bless that
Like
drummer.
they just didn't care. They were just like, playing. Yeah. And then at one point in the show,
time limit.
bras are being flown up on stage, and Kenny's picking them up and showing the crowd. And it's very cool. And then he said to one guy, he goes, for every one of my hit songs you can name, I'll give you $100 American. Now this was 20 years ago, right? So like at the time, the American dollar, was so strong.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, Lady, The Gambler, Coward of the County, and he's just going through these songs, and Kenny's just throwing $100 bills. He's making it rain on this Canadian guy in the front row, and the guy's like, he got up to about 9-10 songs.
It's $1,000.
The best part after that, I was so blown away. I was young, and I was like, my God,
what a boss!
My dad and I went into the casino afterwards to do some gambling. And Kenny Rogers was there sitting at a table by himself, no security.
Really?
And
the gambler was gambling.
He was gambling. He was sitting there, and people were coming up to him, but typical Canadian, like, hi Kenny, and he'd sign, and they'd go away. Probably unlike the States where he'd probably get mobbed, right? Yeah. And we went up, hey, and he's like, hi, you enjoy the show? Yeah. Play his cards, and you're like, fucking Kenny Rogers is sitting at the table at Casino Ramo.
That is amazing,
mental,
dude.
Right? Mental. And it sounded good in that tent.
Hey, man. My first casino concert experience was Frankie Valli.
Whoa.
Oh, nice.
And I was third row. And, it was Frankie Valli, and he has his new 4 seasons, right? So they do all the old stuff. He goes in chronological order as well, and then he does like a New Jersey stoop set where he does like the doo-wop stuff a cappella.
Nice.
He was awesome. He was 78 at the time, and he was still doing the choreography and stuff like that.
Nice.
And then I had dinner with him that night. And I sat beside him, and he was telling me how he wanted to be a Frank Sinatra impersonator.
Of course.
But his voice wasn't low enough. And we would laugh and stuff like that. But that was the only time I went to a Rama show. And it was obviously because of that. It was the best experience.
Yeah.
And then he ended up doing mentoring. He was mentoring me for a while. Because I was auditioning for Jersey Boys and doing all that stuff too. And he was such a sweetheart. That guy, thick Jersey accent. And it's almost like the older he gets, he's Joe Pesciing it up a little bit. This is good food. You know, like this food.
Get your fucking shine box.
This is good. I don't drink no more. I get stupid when I drink.
Speaking of acapella, I saw Huey Lewis in the news at Casino Ramo,
right?
When they built the new place, and he at one point in his set, all 5 guys in his bands, he's like, "Hey guys, get up here," and they got around the one mic and did his acapella stuff,
nice.
Which I was shocked.
Yeah.
I just never saw that coming, and they all could sing, and it was that 5-part harmony crap that makes you get hard, and it's like, oh. They did 2 or 3 tunes and it's like, get back on your instruments.
Wow.
That's awesome. I love when bands do that, man. Just the breakaway from the regular. The Hooligans, Bruno Mars's band. They all can friggin' sing, man.
Yeah.
And in the middle of their show, at least they used to anyway, before 24 Karat came out. But they would do segments of the show where they would gather, when they did Valerie, they would do an a cappella breakdown of that song. His newest album, Silk Sonic's
Oh,
newest stuff. Bootsy Collins.
That's so
producing.
good. I was just too short for me.
Behind the Hooks. With Manny DeGrandis.